So when it comes to back pain, a lot of people unfortunately get distracted by the pain itself and think that that is the problem, when a lot of times your symptoms are not in the same place as your problems. I call it the victim and bully scenario. One part of you hurts, but that's not the part that is broken. That's the part that is breaking. So in the example of low back pain, what a lot of people fail to understand is that our joints alternate function. So they alternate between mobility and stability. My ankles are meant to be very mobile, whereas my knees only bend in one direction. They're meant to be stable. My hips are meant to be very mobile. My low back is not designed to move much at all. Lumbar spine, the vertebrae are much thicker because they're not supposed to move. They're supposed to be stable, as opposed to, say, like the cervical spine, where they're much smaller and they allow for more freedom of motion. Because the lumbar spine is meant to support a lot of load, it has to be strong and stable and not mobile. So when a mobile joint, like your hip, loses its mobility, the body then tries to compensate by creating mobility at the next available joint, which is the low back. Well, if the low back's not supposed to be mobile and it starts to mobilize, that's when the pain sets in, because the muscles that are designed to stabilize the spine will start to lock down to try to hold it in place, because you, the unknowing dum-dum, are trying to use your low back in a way that it is not designed to. So the muscles are trying to lock it down to hold it in place to save you from yourself. So while you don't feel any pain in your hips, you're not using your hips adequately and using your back inappropriately, thus leading to the low back pain. So if you have low back pain, the first thing I love to do with my clients is to say, let's take a look at your hips and see what's going on. So when doing some hip mobility work, I always love to start with soft tissue. It's easy, you can do it yourself, and you can get into a lot of places that can create restriction. So if you are totally new to doing some soft tissue work, I recommend starting with a tennis ball. And then once you become initiated, I like to graduate to lacrosse ball. Soft enough that it's not going to be abrasive on the skin, but still very firm that you're able to get to some of the deeper tissues. So taking that ball, I like to first explore with the piriformis, or the back side of the hip. So taking that ball, gently placing it under your butt. From there, we're going to expose the piriformis by crossing the leg and then slowly shifting weight onto that ball, and slowly rolling around looking for a spot that feels like rainbows and sunshine. Once you find a spot that feels like you've got a good knot or pressure point, you're going to stay on it, focus on your breathing, try to relax as much as having a ball shoved into a sharp point in your butt can feel. And then from there, think about contract and relax. So if that muscle won't let go by just doing some nice relaxing breathing, we can trick it into letting go, doing some contract relax technique. Fishing around, and then once you've cleaned that spot up, we can move to the side of the hip. So the muscles that control our hip stabilizers are AB ductors or abductors, glute med, glute min. We're going to then go to the side of the hip, right around where your belt line is. Should feel like you're on nice meaty tissue. And then again, find a spot that feels like rainbows and sunshine. Then from there, contract, relax, and also using your breathing to get those points to let go. From there, it's all about now stretching tissues that we worked on. So since we worked on our deep external hip rotators, the piriformis, as most people usually refer to it, getting into a pigeon. You can do this on the floor. For ease, I like to do a standing pigeon of just having an elevated surface, taking that leg in the backside of your hip. That's going to take up a lot of the tissue tension that's going to irritate tissues in the low back. Everything in our body is connected. So if I have a spot that is really tight down in my hips, that's winding up that fascia, that's going to pull on my low back. So by eliminating a pressure point, knot, adhesion, whatever you want to call it, down in my hips, I can now create some slack that's going to reduce a lot of that tension and irritation in my low back. So between improving your function and also reducing that fascial load, almost instantaneously you can get immense relief to low back pain. A couple iterations of that, I've had people back on their feet with no pain whatsoever within a week. So first, easy low-hanging fruit to trying to address some low back pain if you've not yet explored hip-related issues.